Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this video clip. I'm pretty excited because we're getting to talk about a play therapy theory and one that I think is really cool and people need to know more about. And I'm also excited because JP Lilly is here with me to talk all about this play therapy theory. Someone who has been doing it a long time, well versed in the play therapy world, served on the Association for Play Therapy board with me as a registered play therapist, all kinds of stuff. We can give everybody a link to your bio if they want to read all
Play,
about
play therapy is our life, Robert. So, you
it.
know,
It does turn into that, right? It's like whether you wanted it to or not, here you are and you've become there. So we're talking about Jungian play therapy in this club, one of the seminal play therapy theories recognized by the Association for Play Therapy. So let's just start with the main question. What is it? What is Jungian play therapy? How would you describe it or define it?
well, I think John Allen was probably the most prolific in helping us understand that Jungian play therapy is more of an attitude rather than a theoretical hammer that one uses to construct things and then follows specific techniques based on that. One of the weird things about Jungian analytical play therapy is the fact that we feel free to use techniques from all different fields, the behaviorists, the cognitivists, the object relations people, all of them. But where it starts really is in the assessment process. One of the things that Jungian analytical play therapy is really specifically known for too is the systemic approach. Um, Murray Bowen in the 50s usually gets credit for having forwarded the systemic family therapy process and stuff. But actually, Jung was writing about that in 1927 in a book by Francis Wicks called The Inner World of Childhood. And he wrote a forward in that, but he wrote about this participation mystique where the children will take up and start to begin to act out very much the psyche of the parents and stuff. So from the very beginning, we're looking at a more systemic process of like, what are the parents bringing in here? Is there a legacy or a revolving slate of abuse? Is there a revolving slate of trauma and stuff? And so we look at that, at the outset, and we look, okay, so what is going to be coming forward here? Then we look at the child specifically, and we look at them in terms of like what is going on with them. We're very clear that symptoms generally reflect some kind of inner trouble that's going on with them. But what makes this approach unique is the fact that we believe that the source of transformation for that child lies within the unconscious. And so by being able to participate in play therapy, where we have we don't have time for the explanations, but we have these archetypal characters in our play therapy rooms as toys, and watching how the children approach which toys and then what theme do they act out with those toys, it usually leads us to understanding the inner turmoil that's going on with the child. So we're not really symptom driven, but we look at the symptoms as they relate to perhaps the complex, which is um, an inner dynamic within the psyche where there's damage or disruption. What's been great with neuroscience is that with Rick Gaskell, he's been able to explain, and we've co-presented before how that can be a neural cluster of emotion. And Jung described it just as that back before we had any of that technology, that there was the complex is a tremendous amount of emotion packed around an archetype of some kind, whether it be abusive or whether it be, betrayal or abandonment or things like this. And so it helps us to understand. So when a child comes into play therapy, we have a little bit of understanding about what's going on with them symptomatically. And so that helps us say, okay, so if a child comes in, for example, if they're out there punching kids in the face at recess, it's like, okay, there's a symptom, but what is it related to? What is this? Where does this genuinely come from? Does it come from a place of, them trying to, confirm what's happened to them, or does it come from a place where they're compensating for having felt weak and now they're acting that out to become strong again? And so we take everything that the child does in the play therapy room and we try and put it into what John Allen calls soft hypotheses, where we look at that and we say, this could be this could be that, and stuff. And we hold on to those and we see kind of how it plays out from there. So the transformation that comes is from the actual play, which is amazing because, I mean, that's where the magic happens because they're already in an unconscious place anyway. And now they have the ability to act out and transform that, or even lengthen out the demonstration of it. And sometimes, it takes a little bit longer for them to make that transformation, but when they do it, it's fairly profound. And the other part I think is unique about the Jungian process is that we believe that we're part of the play therapy room. So there are times where a child will need us to act out something or be involved in some way. So we got to get out of the chair and we have to share that space with them. For example, if a child is really, which a lot of children can't really verbalize, I'm really angry right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of doing that, they just say, well, you know what? I'm going to make you angry. I'm going to piss you off. I'm going to do something that's going to make you mad. And so, children, because they're connected to us unconsciously, know what to do. They start clearing the
Right.
shelves off, slapping things around and doing things,
Yes.
breaking rules and stuff. And so, I'm feeling what they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So my role becomes not only the witness and the interpreter and in the relationship, but it also becomes the container, because sometimes they just want to put that in you and say, there, now you know what I'm feeling, and now you know what that experience is like for me. And then when we acknowledge that, and I think most people have this experience, they go, where you're angry, and they can get that you're angry, they stop. Okay,
Yeah.
message received, message delivered and stuff. So we're always working with the premise that unconsciously the children are connected to whatever it is that's going on inside of them, and they can demonstrate that and portray that because the toys represent that unconscious language for them, and then they can make that transformation and show what's really going on for them.
I love that last part. And I think it's so important what you said at the beginning that for the Jungian play therapist, it's about, the person of the therapist and what you're bringing in as your philosophy and how you're viewing the child and being in this space with them. It's not necessarily this list of 10 protocols. And I think that's so neat. This is something, doing these play therapy videos that I've kind of been brought back to myself, because I think we're in a climate right now, and not that these things are bad, I'm just saying they are what they are, but we're in a climate right now where I feel like there's just all these sort of go quick, get trained in this new thing. And it's like a list of protocols. Like, here's
Yeah.
your to-do list. And we're forgetting the person of the therapist and what you're bringing in terms of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just reminded me of that when you said that, and how important that is in the play therapy process, probably all mental health processes, but we're talking about play therapy.
Right. Right. And knowing ourselves is really important. That's why we kind of generally insist on people doing their own work. Knowing where I stop and my client begins is really important. But also, there's a cultural and pan-cultural aspect to Jungian play therapy as well. John Allen used to use the image of his hand, saying, collectively in the unconscious, we're all here, one and the same. Somebody might grow up in Africa, somebody might grow up in Asia, somebody goes in Europe, North America, South America. But the more unconscious we get in the play, the more we see the themes come out of the hero, of the villain, of the savior, and these different kinds of themes that come out, and they connect us all. I think Joseph Campbell, probably in his writings, really demonstrated that very well in Power of Myth and The Hero with a Thousand Faces, showing that, it doesn't matter the culture, there's these archetypes are there, these heroes, these villains, and all these things, the abusers and all these things are there already. And so it's specific for me to know that I need to know the child's cultural background as well. And if I don't, I get to do a little research, which I
Hmm.
absolutely love to do.
Yeah.
I had one little boy I worked with many years ago, and he was about done with his therapy, and he was playing with the clay. And I use Sculpey clay, that you can harden and paint. And he made, and I knew his heritage was Celtic from his parents, and he made this knot. He's 6 years old, and he made this
Uh-huh.
Celtic knot. And then he fired it at home, and he painted it this blue, which was a dominant color in their family crest. But he painted it blue, and he carried it in his pocket for a couple of weeks. And then he came in and handed it to me. And he says, "I don't think I need this anymore."
Oh, wow.
The geologists have that saying
Yeah.
about, if I didn't believe it, I never would have seen it.
Hmm.
But if I had not believed that, this came from so deep, this part of him here,
Right.
and this part right here, I never would have believed it. But it was so beautiful to watch him create that, and it brings tears to my eyes. I still have a picture of it.
Oh,
I love it.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great moment, right?
It was huge. It was huge,
Yes.
and I knew that the transformation had taken place.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? You were sharing that, and I was thinking that I feel like the lay play therapist, and I would admit, I was kind of one of these people before I picked up a book or a training on Jungian Play Therapy. Uh, Probably thinks, oh, you're going to do a bunch of mandalas and some sand trays.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, like, where does that actually fit into the approach? Is that something you might do? What would that look like?
It is, and more latency age kids, we start to do more of that because they can have a better level of understanding and be able to restrict themselves and confine themselves to that kind of play. You get a 3-year-old in there playing in the sand, they want to get in the sand. you know
Mm,
a
yeah,
12-year-old will actually manipulate things in the sand. So I think time and place is really the issue there, and what the maturity of the child is, and the function it serves. The sand does not serve the same function for a 3-year-old as it does for a 12-year-old.
yeah,
And so we're very cognizant of those developmental levels of task of cognitive developmental tasks that they can do. And one of those is to be able to kind of differentiate themselves from what they're actually playing with and stuff. So yeah, so the mandalas and the sand play and stuff comes a little bit later
hmm,
for me. And so probably latency age kids start to do that.
okay, great. Thanks
Yeah.
for that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I kind of know the answer to this, but we're asking for everybody else.
Yeah.
If you were thinking of, maybe you're watching this and you're thinking, I would like to learn more about this. I'd like to do this in my play therapy work. Are there any specific populations or issues, therapy needs where Jungian play therapy is more directed, or is it just more across the board with all kids?
Well, because we're so individually, conscious, like when a child comes in, we're so individually focused on them, and therapy really rarely looks the same between one child and another child. I had this one client not long ago. Okay, just, I mean, here's an unconscious thing that was quite amazing. But he was a 7-year-old boy, and he was out, and he was doing that. He was punching every kid out in the playground at recess. He was Nigerian, and his dad had immigrated from Nigeria and stuff. And I noticed this boy would only wear red shoes, and he would only wear red shoelaces with his red shoes.
Hmm.
And so one day I asked his dad. I said, how are you distinguished in Nigeria? Are you tribal? Are you clans? Are you bands and stuff? And he said, we're tribes. And he described to me how it was orchestrated over there. And then he told me, and I asked him, I said, do you have a crest of any kind and naturally here comes this crest that was 90% red, you know,
Hmm.
and his
Right.
son had never seen that crest before,
Oh,
never identified with that crest. And I said, I believe your son is trying to preserve being Nigerian for you and for him. Can he
hmm.
do this another way? can we create another rite of passage for him to be who he is without hurting other people?
Right.
And it dawned on the dad, like, wow, so these are pieces that come together, but they take a little bit of, a little bit of reflection. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't treat him, I mean, okay, we can do the behavioral stuff. Let's, we're gonna, you know, introduce some negative, stuff, if consequences if you do this, or, and contingencies, but just opening his mind and saying, you're a good Nigerian.
Mhm.
He had to believe that. He had to
Yeah.
understand that. And it doesn't have anything to do with beating kids up. It has
Right.
everything to do with you being proud of who you are, and you are that. And his aggression left. It was
That's
beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
always looking.
Well, I love that. I think it's so it makes so much sense in terms of just, the diversity of human beings, right?
Right.
Is that you want to work in this framework, so to speak, but you're going to individualize to each child depending on all the things that are going on with them, from their age to their culture to whatever, in terms of helping them kind of get where they need to go in
Hmm.
the play therapy work. So I love that. I think it's really cool. And I think it makes sense. It just makes sense.
Well, and I get to learn a lot. If I get a Fijian client, if I get a Hawaiian client, if I get an Inuit client, if I get, somebody from Eastern Europe, one of my favorite clients I ever worked with was from Siberia. But
Uh,
I got to immerse myself a little bit in that culture and learn, and ask people, hey, can I talk to you about your culture, and
yeah.
stuff, and find out that some of the things they do and they're attracted to have everything to do with their culture, and they didn't even know it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And obviously, it is something that I know that you think is great too.
I do love it.
It's one of those play therapy approaches that I feel like probably doesn't get enough attention.
Mm.
And maybe there just isn't enough, I don't know, of it being enough access or trainings or out there in the public eye, because I think that there's so many. This is what I was thinking before you came on. Um, I was thinking, gosh, there's so many things I run into, even if it's just somebody doing like a structured intervention. And I'm like, you're kind of pulling that from Jungian thought therapy. Like, but I
Well,
mean, it's not ever being said, right? But
right.
it's sort of like, do you know where some of this comes from? It just seems like it's getting actually little snippets of it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Are getting used a lot without people really fully understanding where that has come from.
Well, they get lit up about it, Robert. I mean, I was watching. I was standing at the back of the hall with Ileana Gill, and we were watching John Allen do a presentation. It was beautiful, very symbolic. He's doing all this stuff, and Ileana looked at me. She said, "I think I'm Jungian." And yeah, and I related back to her. I said, "We know."
Oh, that's funny.
You just don't know it yet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably true for a lot of people.
Well, it
Uh,
really is, because they
yeah,
resonate with that, they
yes,
do.
yeah. Well, how do you get more information? Where are good sources of information, trainings, books, etc., that somebody could look into?
Well, of course, John Allen's books, Written Paths for Healing, is one of the things. It's mostly technique oriented, and inscapes. It's also his book. Um, but I have a chapter in fact, I just got done doing the revision for the second edition of the play therapy interventions or theories, and I don't know, Crenshaw
Uh-huh.
Stewart.
Yes.
Anyway, that one. And then just, I mean, what the problem with Jung was that it was so broad, and it was so vast, and some things just don't apply. You know, some of the theory doesn't apply because it's about children, and that's probably why Jung didn't really write a lot about children.
Right.
Um, is because, you know, it didn't, a lot of it didn't apply, but a lot of it does, you know, and that's been really cool to, so in the chapter, you know, I think it's chapter 4, I really tried to narrow it all down to what it would look like in a child, and try and, you know, make it make sense
Yeah.
to somebody coming in and going, oh, okay, I see where that goes and stuff. And to try to make it readable, you know, because I'm not
Sure.
a intellectual writer or anything. So I'm more, I
Uh,
think I referred to myself as I'm the guy, you know, uh, servicing the engine on the car when the
uh,
engineers like John Allen and Eric Green are doing the theoretical stuff. You know, I'm the guy in the pits. You know.
okay. Well, as far as trainings, I know you do trainings on this
I
topic.
do. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you're available to be like contacted and do trainings, and you pop up in different places doing trainings.
I do. I love doing them. I more than anything, I just love people to get in touch with who they are. That's a big part of a 2-day training. A 1-day training, we just try and boom, we rush through everything really as fast as we can, trying to give it a foundation, you know, at least so people can say, okay, that's a foundation. Now I can work off of that. But the, you know, a 2-day one, we work more on like, where do you fit into this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, Jung believed that, you know, just you being your most authentic you is going to do the very best work possible. You know, like Gary. I mean, you know, there's no way in the world I could do child centered like Gary
Right.
Landreth, but you know, um, there's only one Gary Landreth, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
he is 100% right in line with who he is in doing what he does, and he does his best work there. So
Yeah.
everyone, we believe everyone ought to really do what resonates with them, you know. And so, you know, look at Kevin, you know, with ecosystemic, and just how, you know, I mean, his life, he was trained, he was made for that, you know,
Yeah.
growing up with a depressed mother, and you know, and all that, and you know, and just he's just such a clear thinker, and I just love the way he thinks. Yeah.
Well, I like that. That's a great actual sentiment to end on, I think.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and time here and knowledge and giving people this information. So if you're watching and you have been intrigued and maybe thinking now you've discovered who you are as a play therapist, but you need to learn more about how to do it, check out these books. Also put a contact info for JP if you want to contact him about a training or find out what he's doing.
Or a question. You know, if you got a
For a
question, because
question.
this stuff is very complicated, and I'm always happy to answer a question if you just want to email me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, JP. I
All
appreciate
right.
it. Everybody, thanks for watching, and come back and check out some more videos.